Welcome back, everyone. So in theory, I should be Phil McSweeney, and obviously I'm not. So I'm going to improvise a bit. I have the notes here, so I'm going to read them while I'm speaking. So because I need to read them, first of all, I think that I would like all the panelists, obviously, to introduce themselves.
Hello, so I'll kick it off. I'm Sarah Erskine, so I work here at the university. I teach in study skills. One of the major things I do talk about is kind of academic writing, so I will definitely have some kind of comments to say in terms of my views about AI and the impact on that.
I'm Kirsty Jarvis. I'm CEO and founder of Luminous PR. My agency is 11 years old, and right from the beginning we've been working from technology clients. And as you can imagine, AI is a big topic of conversation for pretty much every client we work for at the moment.
I'm Mike O'Flynn. I'm a senior account lead at Samfire Digital. Doing it too long in digital marketing, as people keep telling me, but primarily focusing on SEO. So AI has become a really big topic recently with SGE and changes and how people are using it. And recently there were huge amounts of penalties for badly generated AI content. So I've got opinions, both good and bad, and there are people in the room that I work with who also work with AI on it. So I'll try not to offend my friends whilst I'm up here.
Hi everyone, my name is Zainab. I'm a creative producer and scriptwriter. I also own a boutique production company that specializes in IP creation, development and brand building within the kids and family entertainment industry.
Hi everyone, I'm Paul Kitley. I'm the co-founder of a recruitment company called Tech Partners. We do tech recruitment. I love the aerospace, I love the emerging tech space, and all of our clients are talking about this at the moment, so hopefully I've had some value today.
All right, thank you, everyone. We will touch a few topics here, and then obviously I will want all our panelists to have like a conversation about it and tell us their opinion. And then I want obviously interaction from you, from the audience. So if you have questions, that will be the time. The first topic, it is linked to what we were talking about in the last presentation of this morning, and it is about work skills. So what are the work skills that we think are going to be required by humans in the future, where AI is going to have an important role, obviously, in the job market? I know it's a very open question, but personally speaking, I think that I'm not looking too much probably into the specifics, but what we think is going to be the change in the several industries that we have here, so obviously from the education to HR and all other things. And I would just like the speakers to just go in order and tell us what they think it is going to be the future of work in AI, with AI.
Okay, so from the point of view of education, I think in terms of the skills and kind of how AI can be used, the most obvious one is potentially for kind of academic writing in terms of me, and obviously more widely kind of writing. So I don't think that it's going to kind of completely take over the students' ability to kind of write within education and kind of beyond. What I do feel that it maybe might be able to enable is maybe a bit of the kind of cognitive kind of basic kind of steps. It might kind of help a little bit with that. So I do feel that AI is useful for kind of idea generation, kind of inspiration, but I do feel that there's still the need for kind of agency of the user, the person that's using it. So you do have to still have critical thinking skills. You do have to have the ability to kind of assess what is being outputted by the AI tool. So I kind of see AI as kind of working, I suppose, with the user in terms of just an extension, another tool that we can use, both in education and kind of beyond as well in the workplace.
For me, I think it's really interesting to see how businesses are starting to use it for efficiencies and automation, and obviously, as you said earlier, John Kyle, about the kind of taking some of the more the tasks that don't need a huge amount of brain to do and that can be quite boring. But I feel, in terms of skills of the future, I feel quite passionately that we are all human. And that's what makes us so wonderful and so unique and diverse. So looking at how AI will become an augmenter of our jobs and we'll be able to kind of do some of those things that upskill us and give us that knowledge where we don't potentially have it. But things like empathy and sympathy and emotion and those kind of things, that's where actually humans will still very much have a place in terms of skill sets. Thinking about things like customer service or, as we pointed out, like that kind of face-to-face human jobs that absolutely need that one-to-one thing. What I think worries me a little bit about that is we're coming out of an intensely digital age, which ultimately we're all very much buried behind our screens. We've come out of an era of COVID where we've all been quite removed from that humanity. And I think generations that are coming up, that skill set about being able to have a very big personality, or at least personalities that are super diverse, that then makes those interactions unique, because otherwise everything's going to be very shades of grey, and that colour is going to come from who we are as humans.
Yeah. Cool. So, great points. Critical thinking was one of the things that I was going to say, especially within the marketing space. But the way that I'm looking at it in the terms of AI and having to embrace, if you will, is you may not be adopting, but you do need to adapt within a marketing space, because the content's being generated en masse. It's one area. The search engines are moving along and moving into AI, the way people are using and interacting with AI, how we even communicate. Those who have been adopters of AI for a while now talk differently to their computers than people who haven't been. We are getting more used to being question-led as human beings. We keep asking, people are asking Google questions nicer now than we used to. So can you please find me a restaurant instead of nearest restaurant to me? Because that's what you would type into ChatGPT or Bing. And also the integration on systems. Not to take anything that Paul might say in a minute, but we were talking earlier about how Google and Apple are about to get in bed in terms of AI. Microsoft and ChatGPT are already in bed, so the way that we use our PC, we're all going to start using Copilot if we like it or not. The way we use our phones, whether we're Android or Apple, we're all going to change. So if the way people are changing is changing, then we need to change and adapt to who we are and how we market and how we communicate, how we spread PR messages, My wife works in education, how she has to grade and double check things aren't being plagiarized by robots. So everything needs to change. So even if you're not adopting AI, you do need to adapt to it and change your kind of mindsets towards it.
I agree with everything you guys said. Just to add on from a creative perspective, obviously you need creative skills, critical thinking, problem solving. For example, as a scriptwriter, when you're writing a character, AI can give you like generic ideas, but you still have to add life to it, like doing the backstory of your character to bring it to life, like based on their personality, how they're going to react in a situation, like conflict, the central conflict of your story. So I work in the kids space for animation. You obviously need to do your research to find out what's appropriate for certain age groups. For example, if you're creating content for a group, let's say preschool, like 4 to 6, you have to have a deeper understanding of how they would problem solving, like their development level. You have to apply that. AI can't do that for you, so there's so many layers to it. Also, if you're building the world, you have to kind of put life into it. AI can't do that. And most times when we create things, we're bringing our own personal experience into it. AI can't do that, so you have to kind of put life into your work so that people can emotionally connect with it. Yeah.
That's a big question to start with. Being in recruitment, we use LinkedIn a lot, as I'm sure you guys do too. So each year, LinkedIn run an annual summit, which was actually yesterday. LinkedIn aren't the oracle, but they do have a lot of data, especially around jobs. And they predict that 1 billion people in the next 10 years will have to reskill or retrain due to AI. So if you let that sink in, that's a lot of people. So where do I think the change will happen? I think it's going to happen across most things. I think things like low-skill jobs, production line operatives, customer service, those sorts of things, I think are at risk. Lots of automation and things that AI can do. And companies can save money, they can work 24/7. So I think that's a risk. I don't know if the techies in the room might know this, but others might not. So there was a company in America called Cognition Labs that have just created something called Devin, which is the world's first AI software engineer. And it can work on real life projects. It, I think, corrected 14% of issues on GitHub, which I'm told is higher than most software developers can do. So I think there's going to be some changes in software development. Do I think it will replace software developers? Probably not. I think the lower level code stuff will move probably to AI. So I think there was a chap at a player in Silicon Valley that said that it was the most impressive pitch that he's seen a startup do in the last 20 years. So that shows the kind of scale of what could happen. I do think there's going to be a big rise in jobs around ethics, governance, regulation. I think that's an area we're going to see lots of job creation. So I don't think jobs are going to go as a whole. I think they're just going to change. I think software developers, for example, will be just higher up the chain, not doing the lower level stuff, and I think it'll be the same in other industries, I think.
Yeah, I think that the upskilling probably is something I will agree that is going to be needed. I mean, the second question was about how we think that this transformation will happen, but I would like to change it into more of a talk between us, because I think in the how is linked to one of the things that probably we all hear from people. Everyone is a bit worried about the how quickly, how it will happen, are we ready for it? And what is your opinion in terms of how it's going to happen and how we can do? Because we can't stop it, that's the thing. I think we all know we can't stop it. So what can we say to the people that are scared nowadays? And they say, oh, so will I still have a job? Because, but sometimes, I suppose I speak with people that say, I do enjoy sitting for hours in front of my Excel, it just suits me, it's what I like to do. Why I wouldn't want to do there are. Our preference is, we all like to do different things. So they say, why is AI coming from me? I don't want it, I still want to do it. So there are some legitimate fears about that. So what do we think is the way of, the feasible ways of dealing with this? You can random orders, whoever, yeah.
I just think people bluntly have to accept it. It's here. You said it earlier, it's coming. And I think what will happen is there'll probably be kind of two schools of thought. One which will kind of almost stick their head in the sand and just let it come and wash over them. And sadly, they probably won't be the ones that are competitive in the market. And that's, ultimately, I think, the fact that you pulled out some news articles earlier that, it's now hitting mainstream media, this kind of thing. It's ultimately, it's now becoming the kind of thing where people are getting interested. I don't think people can look at ignoring it now. And it's coming.
I think education is the key, and starting at a younger level of how people, fear is what puts people off using it. Every major platform is creating their own AI education courses, which I'm going through every single introduction to AI to see Microsoft do it different to Google do it different to IBM. I'm going to try and say I can never say it correctly, Nvidia, whatever it is, the chip company that I've never said it correctly in my life. They have their own version of courses that they're rolling out for it. So everybody's teaching AI differently. When you're starting to come into a different age group, when you're not old and cynical like I am, you can adopt that quicker instead of being forced into it. So it's going to come in a wave behind us of people. So educating ourselves now, educating the people around us, understanding that it's not necessarily there to replace everything, but we're all quite happy when our phones does. We're all happy with autocorrect 90% of the time. So why would we not be happy with another bit of tool that's going to help us, or spell check, or any of these simple things that become part of our lives? Why shouldn't we be integrating some of these technologies? But we need to learn about it. We need to learn about it properly. We need to know how to use it ethically. Is one of the key things to talk about. And I will still create. As good as the art presentation was beforehand, I'll still create terrible D&D characters using AI art because I don't want to contact a graphic designer about it because they'll laugh me out the building. So there are fun ways that you can kind of start getting used to it. There are free education platforms available from major providers, so the IBM, and everybody has got one. So jumping on those and educating yourself, and it's coming through the younger generations of education. There's probably, I've got cousins who are 8 years old who know more about AI than I do nowadays. So.
No, I definitely agree that education and kind of learning a bit more about how to use it effectively is definitely the way forward. So I'm on the AI working group for the university, and one of the things that we looked at quite quickly is the fact that the Russell Group universities actually came up with 5 guiding principles. And actually one of the top principles was the need for people to be educated, so people working within universities, students, because it's kind of getting over that fear, I think, because if you know what it is and you can know how to kind of use it efficiently, then you'll quickly become a convert. And I've had a lot of students that have been quite apprehensive. Strangely enough, you might kind of be surprised by that, about using AI, but I'm definitely a proponent of kind of educating my students to kind of use it efficiently. And like I said, once people know how to use it, they definitely gain confidence when they can see what it can do for them.
Yeah, I agree. Taking it back to schools and educating kids from a very young age and how to use it effectively. For example, I think there's a school in Sweden. They're teaching kids, I think, from primary level how to detect fake news and also how AI is also generating fake news. So they're already teaching them at that level how to detect that. So it's like getting them while they're still young and how they can also embed it in their workflow in a morally and ethical way that doesn't compromise their skills or affect their development skills.
Well, it's not going away, so to be blunt. I think a lot of the companies I'm speaking to, there's a lot of confusion out there. I think everyone knows they need to adopt it, need to use it and implement it in their businesses. I think there's a lot of people just don't know how. There's so much out there, and it's where do I start? What do I do? So I think people are quite guarded about it. That's my feeling. In terms of the education piece, I mean, my son's 11 and he can do far more with AI than I can, which is a bit embarrassing, but yeah, I think it's going to happen. It will happen in schools. It has to. I think kids just pick things up anyway, so I think naturally it will just evolve into society, I think.
It also knocks down quite a lot of barriers as well. So say if you're not neurotypical, for example, and you have that thing inside you where you've got a really creative idea, but actually putting it to pen to paper or creating animation or something like that, your boundary is your inability to create something artistically or word something correctly. You can feed exactly what you were thinking into an AI program and see what comes out. I have an autistic nephew who I just found out is autistic, and he's really into game creation. So he's using AI and game creation platforms to explain what he wants to see in a game, so he can learn to do the coding, so he can learn to build it. 10 years ago, he would have just been frustratingly shouting at a computer screen, and there are real big positives that come from that, and coming at an educational side to kind of knock down those barriers. What I would have given to have it as an 11-year-old, I probably would have misused it massively, but yeah, still.
Yeah, one of the things, and this is kind of almost a question which I'd love to know if anyone has any opinions on, but we're talking a lot about education from obviously early ages, which is brilliant for the generations coming up, but what about the danger of digital exclusion for the older workforce and the people? So who should own that education for people already in the workforce that are, because this is probably going to come pretty quickly, right? And people that still perhaps have got 20 years left in the workforce, should it come from employers? Should it come from governments? How do we prepare the entire workforce, not just the up and coming?
Well, there's a Disrupt HR session coming after the next networking break, which I'm sure they'd love to answer. So I'm hoping I can see people in the room who are going to be on speaking in that session. But it comes from having worked with companies to develop internal training programs for marketers in general, where they had to learn aging myself, learn how to do SEO, learn how to do PPC when it first came about, learn not to use print media. There's always a need for continual professional development being driven by the key institutes that are behind it. So whether that's coming from Digital Marketing Institute or someone like that who's teaching it from the marketing side, or coming from BCS, the British Computer Society, who run courses for companies and stuff like that. There are institutes who should be pushing this to education practices. There are apprenticeships available to adults. There's across all of these should be gearing that next generation to say, but then that's just getting adults into education. It's hard enough as it is. So trying to teach them something that they're scared of might be a trickier solution.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I believe that in terms of existing foreign workforce, I suppose it should come from the businesses themselves, but we all know that that is a bit difficult sometimes. So I believe that probably business on their own won't be able to do that. I think that there should be definitely public involvement, government involvement into helping businesses that actually promote the practice. I think that without external help, in particular in the economic situation that at the moment that we're having, if it continues like that, it's going to be very challenging. Before opening to the questions of the public, I wanted to, because we're talking about businesses and we just naturally flow into that, what we think is that these are the problems. What we think are instead the opportunities. And actually, I love the fact that you pointed out, we talk about the young generation, but let's talk about, I think that as usual, the two extremes, they're the ones that are more difficult to deal with, obviously. They're the ones that need more likely help. So what is the opportunity for them? So, we're talking about why it's difficult, but my question, I suppose, is a bit provocative. Is it worth it? Is the opportunity? We know it's not going back. But if we need to encourage these people saying, I don't want to be upskilled, I don't care, I was very happy doing my work, what is the opportunity for them into that? So if there was someone here saying, I just feel that I got all of this, it's imposed on me, I don't want to hear anything about it. What is in there for them? And for the new generations, lots of juniors that tell me that they're struggling a lot to find work, students. I still do a lot of students. So, what is the opportunity for them?
It might be one for the HR professionals specifically, but if I was tackling that with my business, I think it would come down to where people's super skills are, and then looking at the roles that people fit into, and some may be really appropriate to work with AI, and some may not, and it might just be kind of recategorizing the world of work and how we see things, rather than performance and output, which is a very traditional way of working. Maybe there's something around people on the team that are specifically working with AI. I don't know. I mean, it's a really tough challenge, because you can't make people do it. But imagine when the first computers came out and people were still using typewriters and whatever, those people eventually had to follow suit, and I don't know, I think that has to happen.
It's a tough question. I think as employers it's our job to reskill and train our staff and give them opportunities, I think. I don't think AI replaces us, I think it complements us, and I think that's a really key point. And I think the more mundane, lower level tasks that AI can do just enables us to do more strategic stuff. And I think we just need to learn as society and employers and employees to look at it like that and be a bit higher up the chain essentially, and be more strategy and coordination focused. I think that's the way it's going to go, and I think that's the way as an employer myself I need to lead my staff. That's how I see it. I don't think we should be scared of AI. At the end of the day, I don't see AI overtaking us. I see us steering it. So I think that's the way it is.
The strategic part, I think, is really good, because we talked about creativity and you talked about the mind-numbing jobs. If you can get all of the data processed by a machine, either through machine learning or AI, depending how much of an opinion you want from the data, you can then put your critical thinking, put your expertise, put your strategic hat on and make the decisions that need to be made as to where you're steering things. So if you're talking mass research projects, especially like educational I know a friend who at the moment is completing their doctorate and they're looking at crazy science stuff that I don't really understand. But they are using mass amounts of machine learning that they let run in the background so they can come back and be the doctor, professor person who makes the decision at the end as to what that means and how they can implement it and how that's going to better advance humanity. 2-3 years ago, even if they were doing that, they would be manually processing samples to a degree that would make them quit all forms of education, no longer get a doctorate and work as a carpenter. So it's those things that they look at differently. So from our side, if we're looking to mass process a huge amount of competitor data research or anything that we're doing there, I'm more interested in the output and making a decision on it than I am on actually processing the data. So taking away all the boring side so you can be strategic and creative makes it more beneficial. And if you show that to people who don't want to adopt it, you're showing them how you make their life easier, then all of a sudden people get happy. Apart from those people that Giancarlo knows who like to watch Excel spreadsheets, but they can do that on the weekend or however they want, but that's fine.
I was going to say the opportunity is for us as individuals to kind of step up, and that's to kind of go back to like the traditional way of doing things, which is the skills that you mentioned earlier, communications, critical thinking, and I feel those are the things that will become gold in the future. So it's an opportunity to kind of use that to work with AI, because that's what's going to make you stand out in the world that's becoming very competitive. So yeah.
Just another thing that I just thought about as well, talking about businesses communicating their AI protocols down to teams, it's a comms problem, and it's something that, businesses do it right, they'll get people right. If I could liken it to if a business gets acquired or is making an acquisition or a merger, the communication that you give to your team at that point is absolutely critical about whether those teams are going to work together well or they're not. And I think talking about a communication strategy around what the business is doing around AI, what it means for the jobs, how people can get involved, what they should be worried about, what they shouldn't be worried about, those kind of things. I think businesses should be starting strategically to plan for that if they're looking at big AI projects and rolling that out throughout the business.
So, what do you think about in terms of students for new generations? What is the opportunities? What is the opportunity for that?
I think I would agree with what the panel said. I think the opportunities are really kind of the time-saving element of a lot of it. So I think we've talked a lot about things like idea generation, things such as kind of summarising information. I also think there's other things that are helpful for students. So, for instance, I've been using AI with students to actually understand information, such as text. So AI is really good in terms of being able to, even now with kind of things such as Claude, actually upload files and it kind of summarising that information for you so that you can kind of process that information a lot quicker. I also think there's opportunities for kind of managing time as well. So AI is really good if you put in a time frame and actually say, this is what I'm trying to do, these are the elements of kind of actually just quickly giving you a breakdown in terms of a time schedule. So I think it's all of those kind of tasks that quite often might kind of take you quite a lot of time that AI can kind of help us with. I think that's the kind of upsell for the students. Just sort of actually saving time so that you can kind of be more efficient.
So there's one thing outside of kind of, if you look at the more macroeconomic approach of business, it's going to help businesses when it starts to help health more. So quicker diagnosis, quicker prognosis, quicker things within the healthcare system and being used is going to mean less people stressing when waiting for results from illnesses. It's going to have a huge impact on those horrible things that happen at university level, like meningitis spreads and things like that, because they're going to be able to catch things earlier and get there. So as much as it's really great for business in general, the greater societal impact of AI in health, we all saw the story about it identifying early onset brain cancer. All the AI in that, please. Ignore everything else. So that if it didn't generate another image in my life, I'd be happy if it could do that. But it's that whole element of being able to kind of not just ease the mundane, but take away the stressful elements of it and take away the things that take too long. That doesn't include driving my car, because I like driving my car as bad as I am at it.
Totally agree. Yeah. So we have, I think, still 5 minutes. So I would love to have some questions from the audience. If you want to ask the panel, as I did one. And so I think we have a couple of 2 or 3 questions. Anyway, we already have. Yeah.
Just curious on the panel's perspective, what do they think is the biggest risk? Or is there a big risk to AI dumbing down humanity? Because if everybody uses the same thing and gets the same result over and over again, over a long period of time, do we run the risk of that brain capacity just deteriorates, especially the younger generation?
That's a really good question. I was actually talking to a gentleman before I came here about this. I guess if you take software developers, for example, where a lot of the code in the future could be done by AI, and they're doing more coordination type roles and stuff, I guess if we get to a position where something goes wrong further down the line, is there a situation where it's gone so far that we don't have the capability, the knowledge, or the know-how to fix that problem? I think that is a risk, and I think we talked earlier about the creation of jobs within regulation, the rules behind what we do and how we operate, and I think that's what they need to do. I think they need to protect us in a situation where it gets so good. If you think how it is now, what's it going to be like in 25 years' time? And I think regulation needs to protect us from a situation where we are in that situation where we're not capable, aware, intelligent enough to kind of sort it out. I do see that as a risk. I also see it as an opportunity for jobs too.
It's to me, it's more of a pivot. So we got worse at math when we had to start using calculators. We got worse at spelling when spell check came in and autocorrect came in. But it allows people to do other things with that brain power. So I can't spell, but I can write good prose, and that doesn't matter now. I can't do mental math, but my calculator does it for me, and percentagecalculator.com does the rest. And anything like that you can think, yes, it takes away one part of a part of your brain, but if your brain isn't naturally inclined to that, then it's not going to want to do it anyway. So it's not really, I don't see it dumbing down. And by taking math as an example, by making the simple math obsolete, you can do more complex things and work out how to, get to space and all those other things that are easier to do now, but nobody seems to want to do it. All those things, but creativity will always find a way to thrive. Giancarlo is a musician as well and uses AI in music. People would probably call him sacrilegious and try and set fire to him, but it allows for a different area of creativity and a different way of thinking. So I think, yes, there is a danger that it dumbs down some elements, but do we really need to be able to do mental arithmetic? So that's the way I kind of look at it in the same light as that.
Yeah, I think I totally agree. I think we should probably trust more ourselves. But this is my personal point of view. When I said during COVID, not everyone was spending time on Netflix. A lot of people were doing it, but so many people were being creative and discovered their passion and started their business during COVID. So I think that we are naturally creative, we're naturally curious if we allow ourselves to be there. COVID was a big experiment. Let's take the whole humanity out of the 9 to 5 and let's see what happens. If there weren't the deaths, there was the tragic side of it. It was a very interesting experiment. We have seen all sorts of things happening, and I think that is where there is a potential, I think, personally, into it. There was another person who wanted to ask a question. Yeah.
To what extent do you think AI will replace search, and what is the impact on the SEO industry?
So, conversation we were having, literally, so as I mentioned, with obviously this combination with Google and Apple and Bing and GPT and creating their platforms, it's going to change the way people interact with search, therefore it's going to change the way search works. Now, if you're long in the tooth like I am, we have seen so many changes over the years of how people search. Pre-URL bar searching, we have seen it pre-question searching, we have seen it pre-near-me searching, which is location-based, was a huge change in the industry. It's always going to evolve and it's always going to change. It is a case of how you learn to adapt and position yourself within that space. are you the best placed person to answer that query? And if so, are you demonstrating it correctly? And then you look at the divergence of how that's going to be. Google and Apple are going to absolutely dominate that mobile market space, but you're going to have a whole group of people who are going to be using their desktops and laptops to do all of their searching. It could be a fantastic opportunity for Bing to do something. So we're going to have to learn to use Bing, which is a strange thing to say out loud. So all of those things are going to change, but it is more changing. It's more of a change to how people use search than it is a change to search. But search is going to get more competitive because of it. And that is going to be probably the biggest thing that we're going to have to adapt to in the marketing space over the next 5 years. I was saying earlier to Paul that I have taken up carpentry art classes. I am looking at things that AI can't replace. As soon as Giancarlo invents a carpentry bot, I'm going to be furious because it's my fallback. But it is one of those things where it is adapting, it is changing, and it's just going to change across the whole zeitgeist, and we're going to have to follow it rather than steer it. The big news in Google was obviously the old head of AI is now the head of search. So it's happening. It's how we adapt and how we move. Does anybody else want to talk about search?
Yeah, so from personal experience, I'm working on a project and I went on ChatGPT to do some search, and it was very generic. I had to do extra stuff because it was focusing just on America and UK, and I needed something that was global. So I had to do in-depth searching, and also had to talk to individuals in different parts of the world. So personally, you still have to do the hard work.
Well, we also will have to remember that AI is, TikTok is how people search nowadays. Search engines are dead. TikTok is where people search.
Yeah, I think we have one last question.
Yeah, so on that same theme, we know that great advances in science and art come from divergent thinking, so complete break from the way things were done or the knowledge of the past. AI seems to be based on summarising all of the information that we already know. So how do we protect our intellect so that we can have that breakthrough thinking that doesn't depend on AI if we are so used to using it?
This is such a great question, and it is really, really fascinating. Personally, and I was going to talk about this earlier as well, to the other gentleman's question about whether it will replace, and our brains will kind of dumb down. I don't know if anyone else feels the same, but when they have a good holiday, some amazing thinking comes to them, and that light bulb moments happen, which they just don't have time. I don't have time in my general life to, and I kind of feel and hope and have faith that the world will still give us enough inspiration away from those digital experiences, that those moments, maybe we'll even get more moments of wonder that comes through because we have more time and space to do it.
Yeah, exactly. I think to the point, I think that if we stop thinking about AI as substituting us, but AI taking out of our time the repetitive stuff, and then we have more brain space or head space. This is very common. Most of I suppose I compose over half of my discography when I was just washing dishes. I wash a lot of dishes, but this is usually when you don't do anything. It's when you allow your brain to rest. That is where there is space for things to emerge. So if AI it is taking away some of the things that we need to do, and we have more free time, I go back to the example of the COVID, then possibly our brain have more space, we have more headspace, and there is more time for ideas to bubble up, to emerge, to do what you said exactly, because new ideas and stuff, I don't think that they're coming from ChatGPT. I don't think that ChatGPT is a good resounding board, usually, for all the things that you don't need to do. So if you ask it, is this a good idea? If it says yes, that probably is not, because it's something that everyone else is doing. So it depends always how you use it. But I think that the central of all of this, it's all us. And I think that AI is not going to take that away from us. There is an opportunity that it gives us more time to be us. And I said there is an opportunity. I'm not saying that is exactly how it is going to happen, but I think that this is where we should aim. I don't know.
I was going to ask Sarah, because obviously you speak to a lot of students who are, do you think AI is dulling creativity or is it enabling them to be more creative by getting rid of all of those things that they hate doing, like filling in forms?
I think it really depends in terms of how you use it. So I've just been creating a session actually to teach students how to use AI, and one of the phrases that I kind of use on there is rubbish in, rubbish out. So I think a lot of it is to do with the user again, going back to education, as you would imagine from me. I think a lot of it is, if the way that you're prompt engineering, you can almost use it in different ways. I think there's a tendency, because people don't really know how to use things like ChatGPT, to almost use it like a search and to get it to kind of give them information. But you can actually use it by kind of using questions and kind of almost using it more like a conversation. So I think that in itself would kind of create a bit more divergent thinking, almost be a bit more like a sounding board, as you were saying.
Yeah, there is one more question.
One last question.
I just think a lot about how the people who are creating AI hold a lot of power in those data sets. So do any of you have concerns over the biases that are present there, and how do you plan to engage with them to, get diverse voices into actual creation around it?
I'll just answer with a very quick way on this one, because it's very interesting. It's a question obviously that emerges always. I always say, when we go and buy a car, is the dealer spending half an hour with us, telling us that the car, oh, please don't go and kill people? I think that the problem with bias is a very important one. I think that we will solve it once we start moving the focus off from the people creating it onto us, how we use it. I think that we should be more careful about there is a bias in AI, there is no doubt about it. And the bias is coming from us. So the thing is, how you solve it? I don't know. You have thousands of people happened already that are there correcting the AI. You're still moving the problem because these people, they all have bias. Do we have governments that they help us doing that? We are still moving the problem of the bias. My idea is that we should just turn it around, and this is our responsibility. So if we know that it's biased, then it is up to us to spot it and then basically make up for it. And I think that is the first point where we need to start. Personally speaking, there should be accountability on the creators, I think, personally. But I don't like when we rely on others to solve the problem. I think that is more important that we all educate ourselves in terms of being used, spotting it, and then trying to use it correctly. So, I don't know if we will ever solve the problem. That's what I'm saying. I'm not very optimistic in terms of we will ever solve the problem of the bias. So I usually then go, so how do we solve it? And I think that once again, possibly it is in our power to solve it.
To me, it's just the case of keeping it as open source as possible, no matter how many massive multi-conglomerate companies buy it. Keeping the code, keeping elements of it open source, and some of them are much better at being open source than others. I am a proponent of Llama, mainly because the name makes me laugh and think about it as New Groove every time. But other than that, it feels like the most open source platform, whereas I do feel like other ones are starting to become a little bit more closed off. So if governments can encourage things that are this technologically important to stay open source, so we can actually govern them, then that actually would be my way of keeping it safe.
Yeah, we just need to close, but if anyone has done it, if you want to just say something.
To your question, for me, I see it as an opportunity, because that's one of the reasons I started my company. So it's like an opportunity to kind of correct the wrongs around biases and stereotypes. So it's giving me the drive to do better and not be too dependent on ChatGPT. So.
I'm actually going to be a bit more controversial. I think governments need to be a bit more involved with making sure that there's real diversity right from the beginning. And that is a problem. I appreciate that's a really difficult problem because there is a lack of women in tech. There's a lack of diversity in technology. There's a lack of, this isn't just an AI problem, this is a tech problem in general. But thinking about regulations, we're at the point where we're starting to build those as nations and as areas, and I think that is important. It's a really important point. At least that, there is some representation of multiple diverse groups that are behind building it.
The open AI is an interesting point. I think big business is always going to make money from it, and they're going to find a way to do that. I don't think that will change. I think on a government level, I think it just needs to change on a society level. I think not just people in this room, but older generations and society as a whole. I think a lot of people in the public know AI is probably feels like a robot and things like that. That's probably what they know, and it's probably some of you in the room here are sitting here to learn more about it. I am. So I think the education piece needs to really improve, and I think that needs to happen before it gets adopted by government and accepted by the people that vote for government. I think the education piece is massive.
All right, I think that we need to stop here, and thank you very much to all of you, and thank you everyone here, and we will have now another 10 minutes break, and then we will have the Disrupt AI starting. All right, thank you very much.
So this is the second AI Summit I've been involved in. I was lucky enough to speak on the panel for the last one. I think Giancarlo needs a lot of credit. He does it with his own back for the global community. Matthew pointed to it earlier. It's great to see someone here. He doesn't get paid for it. He's done it in connection with Bill. There's a lot of effort into it as well. So I think those guys did a massive round of applause for doing it.